Hello, Andrea St. Amand here. We're going to talk about exotic communications in the form of dreams. So I know all of us in here have, or anybody watching this video has had very vivid dreams, and the dreams I'm talking about are not the type that are kind of normal, that you wake up in the next morning and you're like, that was crazy, and you go on. They're the type of dreams that when you have them, you remember them for years later. You remember the sheets that were on the bed and the room that you were sleeping in, and yet most of us still at the time go, yeah, I'm a vivid dreamer, that was crazy, and we just keep going on. So I want to talk today about addressing those various types of dreams, what they mean, and the danger when that happens when we say, oh, I'm just like a vivid dreamer, and we just keep going on with our lives. So my when I was little, and I think a lot of people will relate to this, I had a very active nighttime state. So I didn't even have to be dreaming. It would just be in that state between awake and sleep where I would know somebody was standing in my room. I used to always hear footsteps coming into my room, and I always thought that that was my guardian angel coming to tuck me in. So I had a whole variety of experiences that most adults today looking back would say, oh, those were your imaginary friends. Well, they weren't imaginary. They were very real. They were very serious, real entities who were incredibly playful and loving. So it wasn't until I was getting a little bit older that I was told none of that's real. That's all in your imagination. And that made me petrified, because if something I was experiencing was not real, it wasn't a fear. It's not like I was afraid of the monster under my bed, but I'd never seen it. I really was seeing and hearing and communicating with things in my room or outside my window or somebody trying to get attention from me. If that wasn't real, what's that mean? That means that I'm crazy, right? So when someone tells you, oh, it's not real, everything's in your imagination, and yet the experiences keep continuing, that's when the fear comes in. That's when you're like, well, what the heck is going on now? And I was the kid who always had my nose in her books, and I was always reading supernatural stuff because I love ghost stories and witches and everything else. And so at one point, when I was so afraid of all the stuff that I was experiencing that was very real, but having a battle with myself as a child going, I guess it's not real, my mother was like, no more supernatural stories for you, no more ghosts, no more witches, all of this is in your imagination, all this stuff is your imagination has gotten the best of you. So my well-meaning mother took away then my imagination, took away my outlet, took away the books. So then what am I left with? I'm left being told that my imagination is very dangerous and is creating stuff that seems real to me, but that's not real. That's petrifying as a child, and I'm sure anybody watching this can relate to that. Now, it didn't help that my mom was a psychiatric nurse, and she worked on the mental ward of a hospital, of an inpatient unit. And our house was filled with books on mental disorders, including Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. So without my supernatural books, without knowing what was happening to me, I start perusing the books on Mom's shelf. And I read The Bell Jar, which is a great book if you want to understand depression, but it's a terrible book in the hands of a child, in the hands of a 10-year-old, and all these other books on mental disorder. So when I was about 10 or 11, I diagnosed myself as all the visions I had had, everybody I knew that was around me that seemed very real, and all of the voices, everything that was speaking to me, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm a paranoid schizophrenic. And it's funny now looking back, but that was petrifying in the moment. It was petrifying because I had gone to work with my mom. I saw what inpatient folks looked like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a crazy person. Is that my life? Is that what's happening? Is that my destiny? Terrifying. It was absolutely terrible. So of course my natural reaction was to just ask all these things to go away, ask all the gifts to go away. And I didn't even know what I was asking at that point in time. And I'm sure if you all have experienced this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But as we get older, as we become like teenagers and adults, my experience was that I would still keep having dreams, and the dreams would happen in phases. They would happen, like I would go years without having one, and then I would go several months having a couple of really vivid, lucid dreaming, and they would be always really actually quite beautiful and wonderful. Sometimes I would wake up petrified because I would have that feeling that somebody was standing in my room, but then I would say, no, that's not real. It's just dreaming. I just made it up. But it seemed very real to me. And when I would try to tell people about it, my reaction always, no matter who I told, the reaction I would get was, oh, you're making it up, or it was just like a wild dream. And I knew I wasn't having a wild dream. I knew I was glimpsing some other reality. I knew I was glimpsing, there was some kind of communication, something coming in that was trying to communicate with me. Hi, Lynn. Glad you're here. So one of the dreams that definitely, when I started talking with people about it, made me seem crazy, is that I dreamed one night of Jesus Christ. And I dreamed of all of history passing. And that dream was so real that at the end of the dream, when I woke up, I felt like my body was in two different parts. I felt like I wasn't connected. And what I think was happening was I was having an out-of-body experience, and I really did glimpse something. But that moment I'll never forget. I was 23 years old, and I told people that I was like, oh my gosh, I had this amazing dream, and it was so beautiful, and it was so full of love, and now I know that Christ was a real person, a real human being in flesh and blood. He's not just something that we've been told stories about. And I was like, if Christ is real, then Buddha is real, and like all these other amazing people actually existed as human beings, just like we're existing now. They had their feet on the ground. That's so amazing. And of course, the reaction was, if you tell people you dream about Jesus Christ, they're like, woo, you've got some grandiose complex. You're really seeking attention. Or, great, you're dreaming big. But it was real, and it did make me believe in something greater. But I think, though, as the years have gone on and those dreams have continued in various forms, I now wake up in the middle of the night and I'll see things going on in my room. Some people wake up, their eyes are open. They're still in a dream state, but they're in a form of sleep paralysis, which can be petrifying. So your body is absolutely frozen and you can't move, and that can cause an extreme amount of anxiety, but you're still watching what's happening around you. So what is happening there is that there's energy, your energy is still in the psychic field, and it just hasn't come back into your body enough yet for you to get control back over your limbs. But other folks, and this is what tends to happen to me, I'm still in all realities at the same time. I'm seeing everything. I'm seeing it in my room. I'm seeing people walk around my room. And I'm able to get out of bed and talk and get excited until my husband will very gently say, would you like me to turn the light on? So what I do think is happening there in those situations, and in situations even when they happen in real life, when you think like, oh my gosh, somebody's standing right there. And you look and there's nobody there. And you're like, gosh, I swear there was somebody right there. What is happening is that we are getting communicated to through psychic energy or through mediumship from our guides, from who knows where, but it is happening. And they're saying, wake up, y'all, we are here. I'm here, wake up. And you have this ability, and you are going to be drawn to this. And I'm going to keep poking at you, and we'll keep giving you different experiences until you wake up. So they don't need anything from us. They're trying to wake us up. Now, what happens? Here's the danger when we keep shrugging all that off as like, oh, that was just a dream. I'm just imaginative dreaming. You're turning a blind eye to something, and you're blocking it and you're ignoring it. So when you do that, when you put that energy out there of turning a blind eye to something and of ignoring it, it creeps up in other areas of your life. So in other areas of your life, you're gonna not start seeing clearly. You're gonna have like blinders on, and it's gonna show up in your imagination. It's gonna show up in your creative abilities. They're gonna start to get dampened. They're gonna start to get contained. It's gonna show up in your ability to think really clearly. All that's going to start to get smaller. It's going to show up in your ability to really kind of analyze your emotions and feel things. Everything's going to get compressed. And what we call that is depression. It is going to show up in depression, and then it's going to show up in anxiety. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way that this is the only reason we get depressed and anxious, but it does cause depression and anxiety is a result when we have these intuitive abilities, when we have this wild imaginative ability, when we have mediumship abilities, when we have whatever those are, we don't even know what they are, but we're closing them off, depression and anxiety is going to result. And we don't want that to happen. So one thing I want to give you a real quick analogy of, if you got a super exotic envelope in the mail and it looked really old. And do you all remember those old airmail envelopes? They're really thin paper, and the paper inside was very thin and everything was handwritten in cursive. If you got one of those in the mail today and it was addressed to you, it had your name on it and your address, but it looked old and it had postage and stamps on it in a language you've never even seen before. And you had to very carefully open the envelope and pull those sheets of paper out. And the paper is covered with symbols and pictures and something that looks like a language. And there's so much there that you don't know what it is. You're not going to shrug it off. You're not going to shove it in the recycling bin. You're going to find an expert to help you decipher it, because you're going to be like, this is a message from me. This is something extraordinarily exciting that came to me. Well, that's what's happening with these dreams, with somebody that's trying to connect with us. It is for you, and it's full of love. It's full of magic. And what to do with that is not shrug it off and don't ignore it. Get an expert, get someone to help you decipher it and help you get into your abilities wherever they go. Our abilities lead us many different places. So I have something really exciting I'm getting ready to announce on Saturday, but if you can't wait until Saturday and you want to explore this with me further, reach out to me between now and then, and we'll talk more about getting you into your intuitive and creative spiritual gifts. Okay, I just want to notice that Lynn said she had that happen before, and that was when I was talking about the dreams and seeing things walk around in your room. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think a lot of people have had that happen before. All right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to say goodbye for now. See you soon.